mean, there are a number of different theories, but I have a lot of doubts about the way it was presented. For sure, I'm interested in hearing all of this information by people who I think who have seen have done their research. But I'd like to have a critical opinion. Clearly, it's the correlation between the World Trade Center and the war in Iraq is completely faulty, and we've been manipulated. And the fact that the government has used that as a carte blanche to invade Iraq for no reason, that to me leads into a lot of questions that I don't understand.
So in Islam, the basic principle.
It had been a long and exhausting day, and as we returned to our hotel in Brooklyn, we ran into two Muslims preaching on the subway.
We're making a documentary about the 9/11 truth movement.
The 9/11 what?
Truth movement?
You mean like what really happened?
Yeah. And so basically, I was wondering what your thoughts are about that.
We've heard a lot of things, but I myself, with the level of belief that I have, I can't accuse people of things without proofs. But the way how it's been broken down by the experts as far as how these towers came down, it doesn't seem possible for us to really believe with comfort that the two planes was able to take down 3 buildings. It just really doesn't sit right, It's not something that you say, if you have sense, if you look into the issue. Not that you just watch TV and you hear and you believe whatever you hear, but if you look into the issue and you use the approach that the specialists have used, then you have a problem with it. But who are you going to take this problem to? You know what I mean? Really. You can't just... Some things are out of your hands. And I think this is one of those things.
The following morning, we made our way down to Ground Zero.
If you push weight down on top of something, right, you got all that fire going on below. You got tons of building and steel on top.
Yeah, but the problem with that is there's only one problem with that, though. The problem with that is it's never happened before. After 9/11.
Take a small piece of steel, all right, and keep a torch on it for a while, and just push your weight on it, all right, and keep your torch on it. And eventually that steel is going to give underneath you.
Guys.
Listen, you got a mind. You're in a mindset, and you're going to stay in the mindset. I'm not going to change your mindset, okay? You weren't here. You were probably in high school watching it. I was here, all right?
So about my friend. Hold on one second. My friend John Schroeder, FD&Y Company 10, Ladder 10. He was right there, right across the street.
And I knew the lieutenant that day.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm not trying to say anything against you.
The lieutenant is a friend of mine.
I respect you. One thing we're doing, we're trying to also aware people about the air quality issue. If you were here that day, I bet your lung and your health is not as good as it was before.
That's why we're down here.
That's one thing
today.
we're doing here. Yeah, and that's why we're also down here too. We're doing a big fundraiser for first responders, and one of our biggest first responder members is John Schroeder, the firefighter who's in that building. One thing I would have to tell you, he was actually inside the towers, and he saw a lot of stuff, and he saw dead people on the 20th floor, on the 10th floor, and when he came in there, he saw the lobby blow up, right? And his testimony was ignored by the 9/11 Commission report, NIST, FEMA, all the engineers and all the scientists. His story collaborates. William Rodriguez, I don't know if you know the gentleman. He's a rescue. He's one of the heroes on 9/11 because he was the janitor who opened the door and saved John Schroeder's life. And him and saw the same things, explosions going off in the buildings that were ignored. And these are key critical questions that were ignored and were not answered.
Dude, when did you first start to question the official story?
About 4.5 years ago. I didn't want to believe it. I mean, when I first got into this, I never wanted to believe it, never. And it took me a research to crap out of this, and it took me a lot of sleepless nights just to understand the real story about it. I really don't want to believe it, but it's something that we all need to face and understand. And it's not an easy thing to understand, but I think we have to just to save this country.
Because the truth about 9/11 is that we don't know the truth about 9/11. The Pentagon and NORAD have lied. Now this is serious business, because this crime was solved within hours of the tower collapse. We were given 19 hijackers' photographs on the television and told who did it. And now the FBI has admitted that Osama bin Laden is no longer wanted for the crimes of 9/11. If you go to FBI.gov today, you will read Osama bin Laden's wanted poster. It says nothing about 9/11. Why don't you know this? Because you have not looked into the facts about 9/11. Because a lot of you are thinking This is conspiratorial nonsense. My God, if this was true, the mainstream media would be all over this. Let's talk about the mainstream media. Here's a picture of Jay Staley from BBC on the day of 9/11, reporting the collapse of that building, Building 7, 20 minutes before its collapse. How did she know?
9/11 cover up! 9/11 cover up! 9/11 cover up! 9/11 cover up! 9/11 cover up!
That evening, the protest moved down to Times Square.
I lost my Uncle Mickey on Flight 93 almost 6 years ago, coming up this Tuesday. We're seeking justice for him. We're seeking justice for the rest of the family members, for the first responders, and for people all over the world who have lost their lives.
So your uncle was on Flight 93?
Based on this lie, yeah. Well, that's the story. Flight 93 is a pretty weird one, you know?
Did he make a phone call?
Not that I know of.
Honestly, I think all you guys watch some stupid video on Gmail and you believe what you see. Why don't you just take it for the fucking what you saw that day? What do you have, a card here?
Why has it never been explained why so much steel turned into molten metal at the WT site?
Yo, I've seen that video about the Pentagon, how there was no planes or anything there.
I saw that.
I still don't believe it.
Because the trade
They
centers...
picked up the fucking planes and then they left. And that's what the picture's after the fact.
No, they said that because George Bush doesn't like black people.
Are you guys the guys that did loose change? No. George Bush hates black people. I'll agree with that.
Wasn't the World Trade Center building one that was made with like a column? It was a column building, so that when the buildings hit it, the fire incinerated the entire middle, and that's what took it down. And that's why it collapsed on the inside, like a demolition.
At this point, Alex Jones arrives. Alex Jones is a syndicated radio host from Austin, Texas, who has a huge following in the 9/11 movement.
9/11 was an inside job! 9/11 was an inside job!
Those that are listening to this for the first time and are wondering what we're talking about, it's important to understand. Throughout history, criminal elements of governments have staged terror attacks or staged horrible events to launch wars or oppress their people. They create crises to offer the solution. The 9/11 attacks were carried out by the military-industrial complex. To blame it on the Constitution Bill of Rights, to blame it on imaginary foreign enemies, and to sell us on World War III and one world government. 9/11 was carried out by the military-industrial complex to sell the world on a new age of tyranny. And we're here to tell them a new renaissance is beginning of liberty and freedom, not of tyranny. And that's why they carried out the attacks, because they are scared to death. They are afraid of you, the people, and the fact that the alternative media is growing and that their power monopoly is failing. So again, I salute you for being here to expose the 9/11 inside job.
9/11 was an inside job! 9/11 was an inside job! You were not there! You were not there! You were not there!
You hate America because you want to shut down free speech. You came up and punched me in the back, you little punk.
9/11 was an inside job! 9/11 was an inside job!